If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on November 8th, 2024. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed, that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist, and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on, in case you can't find me later. All right, it is now after October 30th, and like I will explain, we expected signs on this date to reveal adding 5 days. In this Game 5, it was in fact the last game of the World Series as it was thought it might be. And anyway, that confirmed the 5 days, and that got us to this date, November 4th. And the signs on this date confirmed all of the analysis, which will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. This was the day of the death of the King of Music, Quincy Jones. And that revealed adding 13 days to get the date. It is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is amazing, but it will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. All right, welcome to this video in which I will explain this extremely profound diagram. This diagram was made for the purpose of demonstrating how the day that the episode that Paul Simon and Dennis Hopper were together on Saturday Night Live is extremely prophetic. And I'll explain this. But first, let's get some basics out of the way. This video is predicting that Jimmy Carter will die on November 4th. It is predicting that Paul Simon will die on November 8th. And it is predicting that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis into a baseball stadium on November 27th, 2024. The reason for why the deaths of Jimmy Carter and Paul Simon are so extremely important and why their timing is so important, the timing of their deaths, is because in God's signs, as explained in other videos, Jimmy Carter is symbolism for Methuselah from the Bible, Noah's grandfather, who died at the time of the flood judgment. The beginning of the judgment was when he died. In fact, the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. Therefore, when Jimmy Carter, who is symbolism for Methuselah, and vice versa, when he dies, it will signal from God that the destruction will begin now. The destruction that has been warned of for many years will begin now. That's the prophetic significance and meaning of the timing of Jimmy Carter's death. Likewise, this is the case with Paul Simon. Paul Simon's hit that launched his career was Sound of Silence. Paul Simon is symbolism among many things, symbolism for, among many other things, the Sound of Silence, and Revelation chapter 8, verse 1, when silence was observed in heaven before the 7 trumpet judgments commenced. In other words, the judgment destruction, and America is specifically pointed to in those 7 trumpets. I explained that in another video. Some people say that America isn't in the Bible. It couldn't be more wrong. America is definitely most central to the prophetic judgment destruction that is coming. That is, for example, described in Revelation chapter 8. Okay, I explained that in other videos. That isn't the point of this video. But the fact that Paul Simon is symbolism for Revelation 8:1 and the sound of silence that was heard before the 7 trumpet judgments is why Paul Simon's most recent album, 7 Psalms, was released when he was 81 years old, which hints at Revelation 8:1 and the 7 trumpets that followed the sound of silence in heaven. And so, like I am saying, the deaths, or rather the timing of the deaths of these two men are extremely important and signal the beginning of judgment and destruction of America. And this is about America, God's Gentile nation, God's nation. We don't even need to throw the Gentile adjective in advance of it. America is God's nation. God left Israel when it rejected Christ and founded his Christ-centered nation, which has now turned from Christ and is now going to be destroyed, just like ancient Israel was destroyed. This judgment destruction will begin after a sound of silence, if you will, a period of calm before the storm, which will be 11 plus 8 days, which hints at Revelation 8:1. It'll be 11 plus 8 days after the date 11:8, which hints at Revelation 8:1. The date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die on 11:8, the date itself hints at Revelation 8:1. God also did this same thing in August with the dates 8:10 and 8:11, which is explained in another video. And so this period of silence that was experienced in heaven by the author John in Revelation 8:1 is this 11 plus 8 days, which hints at Revelation 8:1, which precedes the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash on November 27th. And it is through her death that the Antichrist will reoccupy the White House. Barack Obama will become the president again in time for the inauguration on January 20th, 2025. Kamala Harris will be replaced by Michelle Obama by Joe Biden. Then Joe Biden will step down, predicted to be on December 26th. In the meantime, the Democrat electors, after they have shoplifted the referendum, will appoint Michelle Obama as the president-elect. So she will be the vice president and the president-elect on December 17th. And then Joe Biden will step down after it is predicted he will have a stroke on December, not that his stroke will be on the 26th, but he will step down on the 26th, and Michelle Obama will become the 47th president, and then she is predicted to step down, or in the meantime, she is predicted to appoint Barack Obama as her vice president, and then she will step down on January 12th. And Barack Obama, on that date, will become the 48th president. And this will all be formalized with an inauguration ceremony on the 20th. All right, so that's the basics here. Now, this video, I wanted to talk about this prophetic moment when Dennis Hopper and Paul Simon hosted Saturday Night Live. Okay, Paul Simon is associated with New York City. He was born in New York City. He grew up in New York City. He is an avid New York Yankees baseball fan. And most importantly, regarding this specifically, Paul Simon was on Saturday Night Live right after 9/11. The events of 9/11 that occurred in New York City. So Paul Simon points to 9/11 and the big warning of judgment for America. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 11 is the judgment warning for ancient Israel, and that was what was communicated on 9/11. In fact, in every 365-day Bible, the Bibles that are divided into a portion of the Bible every day of the year, in the standard 365-day Bible, which Catholics also use, Isaiah 9:11 is the reading on every September 11th. And so God pointed to this, and God is also pointing to this through Paul Simon, because he was on Saturday Night Live performing just a couple of days after 9/11. Also, he performed on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 at the memorial, and he performed Sound of Silence. Okay, so now Dennis Hopper starred in the movie Apocalypse Now, which God is using to communicate the apocalypse now. Now is the beginning of the apocalypse. Apocalypse is another word that means the same thing as Revelation. The book of Revelation is also named or called the Apocalypse. Catholics call the same book the Apocalypse. Okay? That's this word, the word apocalypse means revelation in Greek. Okay, so that's why God is using the movie Apocalypse Now in his signs to communicate that the apocalypse is now beginning. And that's why Paul Simon, as I just explained, is a man that God is using to communicate the timing of the beginning of the apocalypse, hosted Saturday Night Live in 1990 here, along with Dennis Hopper. Oh, you know what I forgot to put in this diagram since it's on my mind? On this Saturday Night Live in 1990, Paul Simon was on the show in order to promote his 4th+4th album, because the 44th president is the Antichrist. And the single that was released from this album is named The Obvious Child, which hints at the Antichrist, who is obvious to those who have wisdom and discernment. Long before I became a born-again Christian even, I knew that this was the case. Because before the election in 2008, I knew that if this man were to be elected, he would be the last president. I did not expect another president. I didn't expect a Trump presidency. Trump, in fact, though, was in fact trumpeting the Antichrist. And if you recall, this is how he rose to political popularity in the first place, was for calling out Barack Obama, for example, for not being born in America, the biggest lie, or the second biggest lie ever told now. Well, actually, there's been so many big lies in the last couple of years. Okay, so anyway, he will, in fact, I was right. Before 2008, or when he was elected, I was right when I said to friends that he may be the first black president, but he is definitely the last president, because a nation gets the government that they deserve. And America no longer deserved democracy after this farce of an election, with the leftist, wicked mainstream media not doing anything to look into who this man actually is. They just wanted so badly to have their first affirmative action president. Okay, black president. So anyway, going off on a tangent there, but that's the, and the name of the album is Hearts and Bones, and that's a hint prophetically at the mark of the Antichrist. Bones are where blood is made, and the mark of the Antichrist corrupts a person's blood. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. The thing that you can't talk about because of the wicked, lying, evil left that will not allow us to talk about what is the truth. All right, and okay, so the show was on November 17th. Now, that's interesting in itself because that hints at the Antichrist. The name Bama in Hebrew is the 1,117th word in the Strong's Hebrew Concordance. Barack Obama, Jesus said in Luke 10:18 that he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. The name Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Barack means lightning. Bama in Hebrew means high place, a metaphor in the Bible for heaven. For example, it is said that Lucifer fell from the high place. It is also a euphemism in the Bible for the false religious worship that the Jews would conduct on tops of mountains. Bama, in fact, is a proper noun. There's two words, but the 1,117th word is proper noun, capital B, Bama. And O, in the language Jesus would have spoken, Aramaic, is the word for from. And so Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Either Jesus didn't know what he was saying when he said this, or he knew that there would be a famous president named Barack Obama and said this anyway, or he was revealing the identity of the Antichrist. Obviously, the latter option is the only one that makes any sense. So that's one thing that 11:17 hints at right here. But also, the first instance of the word owl in the Bible is Leviticus 11:17, and Barack Obama was known as the night owl president, in stark contrast with his predecessor, who was known to be the early bird president. Okay, there's much more to be said about how Barack Obama in God's signs is the owl, but that's enough. And also, the Antichrist is described in Zechariah 11:17. And God calls him in that verse his worthless servant. Okay? So anyway, that's the date. And by the way, that's why Barack Obama's most recent autobiography, A Promised Land, was released on the date 11/17 in 2020 during the CVD disease. Okay, so that was the date of the actual show, the episode in which Paul Simon and Dennis Hopper hosted Saturday Night Live. All right? Now, as I just mentioned, Paul Simon is 9/11 symbolism because of what I had explained. And that's why we have this exact 3,400.00% of a calendar year connection from this date to the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. That is because the number 34, God has embedded in it 9/11 symbolism. I'll just give you an example. On the day of 9/11, the Dow Jones was closed because the towers were hit before the stock market opened. The close from the previous day on the Monday was 9,605.54 or 5.1. Yeah, 5.1. Okay, and that was a difference of actually 0.34 points from the previous close on the Friday before that. It was 9,605.85. It was literally a difference of 0.34. And that's because of what I'm explaining. All right? And that's just one example, though, of the number 34 associated with 9/11. But also, the chapter in the Bible regarding judgment on the nations, the world, is Isaiah chapter 34. And that's why it was the World Trade Center that collapsed on 9/11. Okay, so 34, though, is 2 times 17. And that's why it's 9/11. Because this hints at the two planes that struck the two towers 17 minutes apart. And that's because the judgment destruction began, the flood judgment began on the date 2/17, as recorded in the Bible. Okay, so that's why we have this exact connection from Paul Simon, who, like I have mentioned and explained, was on Saturday Night Live right after 9/11. Okay, all right, and also performed at the memorial ceremony on the 10th anniversary. That was a pretty significant anniversary, obviously. Okay, so let's see now. This is what I want to talk about now, though. 2 days before this, Paul Simon and Dennis Hopper did a commercial for Saturday Night Live, the episode that they were going to host. And I'll just play the commercial. But in the commercial, Paul Simon, for some reason, holds up a newspaper and says, just to prove that this show isn't an old show, here is a copy of the New York Times, and it says November 15th to 1990. So Paul Simon, out of his mouth comes the date, November 15th, 1990. Well, you can be sure that this is from God as a prophetic sign, given that he's standing right next to Dennis Hopper, who is symbolism for Apocalypse Now. Okay, and it is. Sure enough, it is. Why the people making the commercial had him do that, I do not understand. I don't get the joke. I don't understand the joke. Maybe there's a thing that was, known at the time in the news that made it funny that I'm not aware of, but it just doesn't, it seems so strange. But anyway, I'll just play the commercial here for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Hopper.
And I'm Paul Simon.
Now, this is a promo for something, but for the life of me, I don't know what.
Saturday Night Live.
Really? I love that show. Hello, I'm Dennis Hopper.
And I'm Paul Simon.
And we're on Saturday Night Live this week.
Just to prove this is not an old show, here's a copy of the New York Times, November 15th, 1990.
All right. Now, this is why this is amazing. Let's just, before I get into this, go up here. First of all, from this date, it is exactly 1776 weeks, 1,776 weeks to the date of the beginning of the judgment destruction. Like I said, Paul Simon's death will be symbolism for the brief period of silence before the judgment destruction, which will begin on November 27th, the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, which will lead to the rise of the 44th president. And again, Paul Simon was promoting his fourth plus fourth album on this show. And by the way, that song, The Obvious Child, in its chorus has a lyric referencing that says the cross in the ballpark. Amazing. This was learned after it was realized that, long after, so it's been years that I've known that Kamala Harris will die in St. Louis in a plane crash. It's been, let me give you the whole story. It's been known since 2020 that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, and this will be how Barack Obama becomes the president again. It's been known since 2022 that her plane crash will be in St. Louis. It's been known for a number of months now that it will be in the baseball stadium in downtown St. Louis. But now, in the last couple of months, it was learned that it will be in center field of the baseball stadium. And that's also because of Paul Simon, who sang Mrs. Robinson in center field of Yankee Stadium after Joe DiMaggio died. And Joe DiMaggio was involved in an infamous collision in center field with Goose Goslin, which hints at a bird, and Kamala Harris's plane will be struck by a bird, which will cause it to crash into the center field of the baseball stadium, and on and on. Okay, and Michelle Robinson Obama will replace Kamala Harris. That's why Mrs. Robinson, the song. Okay, now, but in this song, and so all of that was learned before I knew or learned about this lyric in this song. Okay, so get this. There's a lyric in this song, the cross in the ballpark. It's amazing. Okay, and so that's what was being promoted in this Saturday Night Live. Exactly 1776 weeks before it is predicted that she will die in a plane crash into the ballpark. And also the reason why St. Louis is because of the cross that was engendered with the two, with the paths of totality of the two eclipses that crossed over America. They crossed over each other right near St. Louis, in an area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. In fact, right over Cairo, Illinois, because in the Bible, Egypt is symbolism for the Antichrist kingdom, and the king of Egypt is symbolism for the Antichrist. All right, now, that's enough of that. So that's why the cross in the ballpark. It's not only the Lord's cross on which he was crucified and paid for the sins and then was resurrected and conquered death for us, which is the wages of sin, death, and everyone is a sinner. Okay, but it's also hinting at, like I'm saying, this cross, this X that was engendered over the nation, which is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. And by the way, X's are about their midpoint. They cross each other at their center. They're straight lines that cross. An X is two straight lines that cross over each other in their midpoint. And the middle date of the two eclipses that engendered an X was December 14th, 2020. And that was the day that the three-letter organization begins with an F, middle letter is D, and ends with an A, approved the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist. That's why it occurred on the exact middle date. And by the way, there was an eclipse that day. There was also a 4.4 magnitude earthquake in Hawaii, where the 44th president is from. It was located at its highest point, Mount Mauna Kea, on its northwest flank. And in in chapter 8 of the book of Daniel in the Bible, the Antichrist comes from the northwest. And it was 4 times 4 miles deep, the 4.4 magnitude earthquake. Okay, so anyway, that was clearly communicating the identity of the mark of the Antichrist. And incidentally, it is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. In fact, those who have wisdom will recognize that there was false religious worship going along with this mark of the Antichrist. And it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is in fact judgment from God for this particular doctrine, which Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. As he said, that was a quote from Revelation chapter 2, in which he says he hates the Nicolaitan doctrine twice. Do you really believe, like the quote-unquote pastors are telling you, the so-called wise men, the anointed ones, do you really believe that Jesus would have said such a thing if it were not meant to be understood in our time right now very, very clearly? These pastors will tell you it's obscure. There's no real way to know what Jesus is talking about. Nonsense. The 7 letters to the churches were more than anything written to us at this time. And Jesus is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on the Nicolaitans, and it's supposed to be not possible to know what he's talking about, and he says it twice. Of course it's to be known, and it should be obvious for those who have wisdom. The word Nicolaitan means in Greek ruling over the laity. Jesus forbid teachers and pastors and priests and bishops and reverends. And this is compatible with the writings of John and Peter and James and much of the writings of Paul. There's a few verses in one book in the one epistle that Paul wrote in which he went against the Lord's teachings regarding this. And this is what the pastors use to claim that they have the authority to be quote-unquote pastors and preach for money, which Jesus also forbid. Okay? But the thing is, now it is more dangerous than ever to be following a pastor. And Jesus isn't only coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on the pastors, but the sycophant followers of the priests and pastors and popes. As John wrote, we do not need any teacher. John wrote, you don't need a teacher. You have, as John said in that same passage, you have the Holy Spirit. We do not need teachers. And relying on a teacher to tell you what is and isn't the mark of the Antichrist is why the judgment has come. The countless Catholics, for example, that relied on their priests to tell them what to do about the MASKs and the things. Just for example. But that's the same scenario in evangelical church after evangelical church as well, where they're spoon-fed. Anyway, I'm not going to say more. Make sure you watch the 23 church signs video. Obviously, if you're a Christian, the most important video on this channel. There are those that will say, well, I don't need to know what the Nicolaitans are. I don't need to know what that doctrine is that Jesus said he hates. I just love Jesus. You couldn't be more wrong. All right? You need to know about doctrine. And you need to know what Jesus is talking about. And I'll finish with this, actually. Jesus gave the first warning that he gave to the disciples in his Olivet Discourse was, beware of those coming claiming to be Christ, for they will lead many people astray. Many will come claiming to be Christ, and they will lead many astray. Well, the word Christ means Messiah. It's Greek for Messiah, and Messiah means anointed one. And there are many other instances in the Bible in which the phrase anointed one is used that do not refer to Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, that's all it means. So, how many people have come claiming to be Christ, Lord Jesus Christ? Not many. How many did they lead? Well, pretty much zero, because when they have come, people obviously recognize that they're in poor mental health for the large part. Right? So, is Jesus really talking about many people, many? And he said many. Okay, so we're to believe, and by the way, the end times isn't another 7 years. It's one more year, and the prediction being made in this video will prove it, and that's the purpose of this prediction. Okay, so we're talking about, okay, this prophecy is not fulfilled yet, and there's supposed to be many Christs, people coming to be Lord Jesus Christ, and they're going to fool many people when everyone who knows anything, like the basics, that the Lord will come in the clouds, or the rapture. How many people is that going to fool? No. Jesus was talking about anointed ones. Many anointed ones would come and lead many people astray. That's exactly what has happened for the last 2,000 years. Many anointed ones have come and have led many people astray. Right? Jesus forbid the preaching of the money-funded, pastor-led, priest-led church has led to all of the egregious, horrific errors such as Jehovah's Witness, Catholicism, and the large portion of evangelical culture, especially today, with its once saved, always saved, for example. Okay. And that's all a result of the institutionalization of these errors through the money, which is why Jesus forbid preaching for money. The thing that Jesus got violently angry over was turning his church into a place for making money. You may recall. He made a whip and turned over the tables and drove out the people from the Temple Mount. His church is not to be a place for making money, which is what the pastors have done, just like the Pharisees did in Jesus' day. Okay? Jesus hates this. He's coming to make war with it. And that's why he forbid the preaching of money, because he knew the result would be the institutionalization of these terrible errors. Jesus is angry with the 45,000 different denominations. There's only one denomination, and by definition, a denomination suppresses or has a teaching that contradicts the teachings of Jesus. That's what makes a denomination a denomination. Making it separate and different than everything else is because they, in one way or another, contradict or suppress the teachings of Jesus. All right? Which is why Jesus forbid all of this. Okay. So, now, the reason why I got off onto that tangent is to tell you that it is the mark of the Antichrist. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that one cannot repent after taking the mark of the Antichrist. All right. And also, the reason for the predictions being made in this video that are from God is to prove what I have just said. Everything. I mean, believe me, I know far better than you the reason and purpose for these predictions, and why God has given me a voice through these predictions in this video. It is to prove what I have just said. Everything that I have just said has been overwhelmingly proven through God's big picture of science, which will be proven to be true when the predictions come to pass. And God's big picture of end times patterns, signs, and connections is only being explained on this channel. Okay? Now, the date here, okay, is so profound here. Now, I've explained this. Well, let's finish this. 1776 is also, obviously, hinting at, or is symbolism for America. But Paul Simon also is symbolism for America. He has, for example, the song America, and also American Tune, which he sang at Jimmy Carter's pre-inaugural ball. Okay? Okay, so that's the reason why that's relevant there too, this 1776 weeks connection. And I have now explained why the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash into a baseball stadium is relevant to Paul Simon, because Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in a baseball stadium, and Kamala Harris will be replaced by Michelle Robinson Obama. Now, also, Paul Simon's name in Hebrew gematria is equal to 500, and on this date, he attracted 500,000 people at his prophetic Central Park concert, which was exactly 9 months later. The number 9 is the most important number in God's big picture of signs. As from the Bible, it symbolizes God's judgment. But also, 9 months is a period of gestation for a human, and Jesus gave us the metaphor of birth pains regarding the timing of the end judgment. And so that's why God uses 9 months connections in his signs. And in Bible prophecy, the number 2,520 is symbolic, 2,520 days is symbolic of the period of the end times. And by the way, we are well inside the final 2,520 days. And the prediction being made in this video will prove this case closed, end of debate. There is no supposed 7 years that haven't begun yet. It's all symbolism, okay? There have been many markers along the way that have proven that in the last 7 years. The 7 symbolic years began in 2017. In fact, we are having an 8th year after the 7 years on the principle of the 7 followed by an 8th in the Bible, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, that's why this 2 times 52 days, which hints at 2,520 days, the period it symbolizes the end and the period of the Antichrist. That gets us to this. This is amazing. This is the date of the release of this documentary by Eleanor Coppola, the wife of Francis Ford Coppola, who made the movie Apocalypse Now. Now, I have another video that's titled the Hurricane Helene video, that explains how extremely important Eleanor Coppola is and this documentary is. I'm just touching on it here. You need to watch, of course, that video, but really the wise person will recognize when the prediction comes to pass that they need to watch every minute of every video on this channel. Now, this date here, and by the way, Paul Simon, a theme in which God is using him for is mansion symbolism, because we are ultimately talking about the White House mansion being occupied again by the Antichrist, the 44th president. But also, that's why Paul Simon's biggest solo album was Graceland, and his song Graceland is about him traveling to the Graceland mansion. Now, the White House mansion has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms in it. So that's, and God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. The release of this movie, or rather documentary, which was award-winning, Hearts of Darkness, about the troubles that the production of the movie was famous for, Apocalypse Now, was released exactly 44 plus 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 44 months exactly. In other words, 44 plus 44 plus 44 times 3 months. Okay, God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. To the date, it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, which will lead to the rise of the 44th president, Antichrist. Here we have another 2 times 52 days, which again hints at the 2,520 days in Bible prophecy that symbolizes the period of the Antichrist. And that gets us to this date, which was the 45th anniversary of the release of the movie Apocalypse Now that cost infamously $45 million. Again, the reason for this movie or documentary, Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, is because of the infamous production fiasco that was the production of Apocalypse Now, and that's why the amount that it cost is prophetic, $45 million, and that's why it was exactly 45 years from the release of the $45 million movie to this date here. And this date was recognized that it would be important because of this 45th anniversary way back in March of 2020. The date itself was recognized to be the big date at the end of 2024, way back in 2017, because of the alignment in the night sky in the stars on this date. But anyway, so the 45th anniversary, what happened? Again, this date was expected in advance, and it was known in advance because of this 45-year connection. And that's why it's astounding beyond words that we received the prophetic signs that occurred on this date that confirmed all of the analysis. Because the other star from Apocalypse Now, Martin Sheen, was in the news for having shaken hands with the president. This was something newsworthy because Martin Sheen played the president in the very famous TV show West Wing. All right? Not only that, though, Martin Sheen shook hands with the president on the White House lawn for everyone to see, which is why it was news. But the thing is, and as explained and illustrated in the documentary, Martin Sheen is known for a particular scene in the movie Apocalypse Now involving his hand. In a scene in the hotel room, that's the plot of the movie. He's waiting in a hotel room in, I believe, Laos, or maybe it's Vietnam. Anyway, I think it's Vietnam. Sorry, it's been a while. So Martin Sheen, while filming, accidentally cut his hand when he punched the mirror. So he was like improvising in the scene, and he punches the mirror, but he accidentally actually punches the mirror literally and breaks the mirror and cuts his hand. And blood, real blood, is coming out. And he continues to act. He continues to go with it. And he ends up putting the blood all over his body in the hotel room because the scene is like he's going mad. That's the drama in the scene. He's losing his mind, waiting in the hotel room day after day for something. Okay? And so he goes with it, and it's real blood, and it's his hand that he cut. And he shook hands with the president in the prophetic sign 45 years later, and that's to point to the bloody hand in order to point to blood that is corrupted with the thing, the mark of the Antichrist. And that's why on this same day, August 15th, 2024, we had this in the news. The big story of the day was the arrests of the people, the 5 people that were supplying famous actor Matthew Perry with things. The ketamine. The arrest of the ketamine queen, which, by the way, hints at Jimmy Carter, who God is using as king symbolism, which I'll explain. And if I don't, it's explained many other times in other videos. So we had the things that was the other, and not only that, the name of the president that Martin Sheen played is President Bartlett. And the most popular type of pear that's sold in the US is Bartlett pears. And on the same day, we had Matthew Perry, who died just after playing pickleball, another type of food, because God is pointing here also to the rationed food to those who only have taken the mark of the Antichrist through the programmable digital currency that's coming soon. So that's also how Martin Sheen, President Bartlett, connects with Matthew Perry, who was in the news because of the things that were supplied to him. And that's all pointing to the blood that was on Martin Sheen's hand that's corrupted by the things. It's so beautiful. God is the master artist. Not only that, we had another Perry sign because that's what all this was pointing to. Matthew Perry also was on the same day of the hit and run death of Perry Kurtz in the same area of Los Angeles, right near where the arrests were and where Matthew Perry died. Perry Kurtz is a comedian, a staple at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. His name is on the outside of the building, is on the building on the exterior. Okay, and he was in the 6th episode of the 8th season of America's Got Talent, and that hints at 68, which is the equivalent in simple English gematria of the name Barack Obama. But also in the parallel in the prophecy and the revelation about the kings that Jimmy Carter is pointing to, Barack Obama is the 6th and 8th king. Because in the parallel, Jimmy Carter began a series of 7 presidents with his inauguration in 77, making Barack Obama the 6th president, and then he will be the 8th president, which identifies the Antichrist. And this is explained more in other videos. I've explained it too many other times. Okay, so that's why Perry Kurtz, and Kurtz hints at the Antichrist curse, but the majority of the news articles on this day explained how Perry Kurtz began his career by winning a competition in his hometown in which he sang as Jerry Lewis, impersonating Jerry Lewis, which is a hint at how Kamala Harris will die in St. Louis, with a bird strike, hence the hit and run of Perry Kurtz. He won the competition by impersonating Jerry Lewis and singing the Beatles song Eleanor Rigby, which hints at Eleanor Coppola, the maker of the documentary Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse. Okay, and so the other video about all of this with Hurricane Helene, which hints at Eleanor, Helene hints at Eleanor, and Hurricane Helene hit the U.S. 167 days after the death of Eleanor Coppola. 167 is the 39th prime number. Helene hit the 27th state, Florida, and 27 is 3 times 9, and this was 39 days before the 309th day of the year, November 4th, the date it is predicted that the 39th president will die. Okay. All right. So, and he will die in the 4th state. It'll be on the 4 times 4th anniversary of the election of the 44th president, and that's why it is 4 days to the predicted death of Paul Simon. I already explained this 11 plus 8 days at the beginning of this video, which hints at Revelation 8:1, as I explained, the calm before the storm, before her predicted death, beginning of judgment, destruction. All right, now, back to this though. I explained now this 45 years to the 45th anniversary of Apocalypse Now and the Martin Sheen sign, which is amazing beyond words. This was exactly 405 months after Dennis Hopper was in the commercial with Paul Simon. Obviously, 405 hints at 45. Not only this, though, just 2 days before this was the 9th of Av in the Hebrew calendar. Okay, the 9th of Av, very important prophetic date in it's a very prophetic date. I'm not going to get into it. I explain it in another video. 45 is the 9th triangular number. The number 9 is the most important number, as from the Bible, it symbolizes God's judgment. By the way, the $45 million movie, 9 million of it was spent on promotion. So that's a 9 right there. And 45 is the 9th triangular number. That's just something, okay? Just a couple of days before, though, was the 9th of Av, and on that day, the Interstate 405 near where Matthew Perry died and where Perry Kurtz was hit and run 2 days later was shut down, and there were 9 arrests of Jewish protesters who were protesting Israel. Astounding, given that this is the Jewish calamity day in history. The 9th of Av. 9 arrests, Jews protesting Israel. Confused Jews. Okay, so, and then we have a 9 times 9 days connection to the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. Also on August 13th was the death of Famous Amos of Famous Amos Cookies, Wally Amos, at the age of 88, which hint at Amos 8:8. But anyway, he was the music promoter who signed Simon and Garfunkel. Literally. He signed Simon and Garfunkel. He's part of the signs that are communicating the death of Paul Simon. All right? That's explained in another video, though. All right. So, okay. So we've done all of this now. We're just going to wrap it up here. God pairs 23 and 44 together in his signs. I just explained how. By the way, this is also the 45th anniversary. The date of Jimmy Carter's predicted death will be the 45th anniversary. That's not an accident. It is hinted at with the 45 years connection to this date. It's the 45th anniversary of the Iranian hostage crisis, also known as the 444-day hostage crisis, which coincided with the final 444 days of Jimmy Carter's presidency, because the 44th president is the Antichrist. And Iran is symbolism for evil and Satan. There's even a passage in Bible prophecy regarding the Prince of Persia, which is a name for Satan. And the Antichrist is Satan's representative, his prince, if you will. So that's another reason for the 4 days here. And okay. Let's see now. The release of Apocalypse Now was exactly 666 days after Game 6, the final game of the 1977 World Series, in which the MVP was player number 44, as in the 44th president. There's much more to this, which I explained in another video, so I won't explain any more now. And this in turn is 271 days, which is the 58th prime number. And that's because Jimmy Carter is symbolic of the prophecy regarding the 5th through 8th kings that I alluded to, and his inauguration, which in turn is 666 days to Jonestown, which is the mass suicide murder of those in Jonestown when they took the thing. They drank the Kool-Aid, but that was actually after they took the thing. They took the Kool-Aid to speed up the process. But this is, in other words, symbolism for the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist. This was also the day of the release of Earth, Wind, and Fire's September song, which talks about September 21st. And that's why September 21st was a big date this year regarding Jimmy Carter signs, which is explained in another video. But Earth, Wind, and Fire, because again, Jimmy Carter is symbolic of Methuselah, who died at the time of the flood judgment, and that's what Earth, Wind, and Fire hints at. And that's why it's exactly 4,567% of a calendar year to the day that Hurricane Beryl hit the U.S. 4,567. The 4,567th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word Satan. This connects us to Hurricane Beryl, like I just said, and Hurricane Beryl was the 8th storm in history to be named Beryl. It hit on the 8th of the month. The 8th stone in Revelation, the book of Revelation, is beryl, and that word in the Greek Concordance is the 969th word, and Methuselah in the Bible died at the age of 969. And of course, the hurricane is Noah's flood symbolism. Now, the prophecy regarding the 5th through 8th kings is Revelation 17:11, and 1711 is the 58th triangular number. That's astounding beyond words, because Revelation 17:11 regards the 5th through 8th kings, and 1711 is the 58th triangular number. And what I also forgot to mention is Hurricane Helene was the 8th named storm of the season and the 5th hurricane, which also hints at the 5th through 8th king's prophecy. Now, 969, the age at which Methuselah died, is the 17th tetrahedral number. A tetrahedral number is the number in a pyramid of numbers. So, for example, the 17th triangular number is 153. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 153rd row is, 17th row is 153. All right? The last number in a pyramid of triangles is 969, the 17th row. Okay? So this is from God. This is the use of this number 17. And that's amazing because, like I just explained, Hurricane Beryl was when it was first learned and identified that Jimmy Carter is symbolism for Methuselah. There's much more to what I'm saying here. I've just explained it so many other times. I'm just going through this information briefly. You need to watch all of the videos. And the thing is that Methuselah died at the age of 969, which the number 17 symbolizes, because it is the 17th tetrahedral number, which is why it is exactly 17 weeks from Hurricane Beryl, which again pointed to 969, and 17 hints at that number, to the predicted death of Jimmy Carter, who is symbolism for Methuselah, who died at the age of 969. Oh, by the way, if you don't know the song Eleanor Rigby, it's the one where the Beatles go, "Oh, look at all the lonely people." Okay, and that's appropriate given the symbolism here for this theme of apocalypse now. It's an appropriate song for God to have incorporated through Eleanor Coppola. It's also, by the way, 11 weeks and 4 days from the anniversary of Apocalypse Now to the death of Jimmy Carter, who, like I'm saying, the timing of his death will be signifying the Apocalypse Now. It's 11 weeks and 4 days to the date 11/4, which also hints at 11 times 4 equals 44. More part of this, and again, it was the 4 times 4th anniversary of the election of the 44th president, and it's Jimmy Carter will die in the 4th state, and this will be 4 days before the predicted death of Paul Simon. All right. And I think, and God pairs 44 and 23 together in his signs to confirm the signs and connections. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God will provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And I know this because I've been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 6 years. And the reason for 23 and 44 is because the 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. That's the short of it. Okay, so that's why that is confirmed, the 23 days connection from this date that again hints at 44, and again it's the anniversary of the 444-day hostage crisis, which is extreme Antichrist. Okay, I've covered this entire diagram now. I'll just leave you with one thought. Make sure you watch the videos and the links in the description box below. But also, if you are a Christian, know that Jesus warned to Christians in Matthew 25 that do not do anything with their bag of gold, they would be banished to hell. Nothing compares with this video as in terms of an evangelical tool. This video is making a prediction, these predictions, and when they come to pass, nothing will compare to it. It is a massive bag of gold. I'm saying this, I'm just warning you that you need to do something with it. What you need to do is share it, and nonstop. And don't just share it into places where you normally go. Post the link everywhere you go, but also post the link in places you never go, to people that would never come across this information otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Not your typical Christian social media sites and videos that you were watching. Leave the link in the comment sections of those videos too that you like to watch. But make sure you also work. Part of the Nicolaitan doctrine that Jesus said he hates is this phobia that evangelicals have regarding works that is rooted in the Nicolaitan doctrine. Okay? Repeating the phrase, you aren't saved by works, you can't earn your salvation, etc., is deception. It's deception, okay? It sounds good. It sounds pretty Christian, actually. All right, but did you not see how that contradicts, for example, the bag of gold parable that Jesus warned? There's so many things I could say, and I've explained it already in another video. Make sure you watch the 23 church signs video. But trust me, the evangelical culture is steeped in deception. just like Catholics and Jehovah's Witnesses, just a different type of deception. Paul was not talking about this kind of works. He was talking about the works of the law. He was talking about circumcision. You need to read the context of what Paul was talking about. Furthermore, this way of interpreting the Bible that many evangelicals interpret the Bible through, they interpret the teachings of Jesus through the writings of Paul instead of the other way around. The writings of Paul should be interpreted through the teachings of Jesus. This is why the very last warning from Peter was a warning regarding those that twist the writings of Paul to their own destruction. Beware of those who twist the writings of Paul to their own destruction. Today, this is widespread. This is widespread. And it's not just today, but today we are in, well, I'm getting off track. We are in a peak in popularity of sovereign grace and Calvinism. Calvinism has waxed and waned 5 times over the last 400 years because people eventually figure out that it isn't the Bible. But we are in a peak of Calvinism right now, and free grace, sovereign grace, monergism, just in time for the Antichrist. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.